I'm hearing from more and more beekeepers all across the US, and a lot of them are saying, uh-oh, I made a mistake. I made my splits too early, or I bought a new package of bees too early. And some people are facing temperatures below 20 degrees Fahrenheit in the US with this new package, and they're wondering what to do. Watch this video all the way through because I also want to address a common question that many of you are asking me. Should I treat my new package with OA as soon as I install it? That's a good question. I want to answer that. Stay tuned. Hey guys, David Burns, good to be with you today. And look at this. Have you ever got things so tangled up that you've tried forever to get them untangled? Beekeeping is that way. You know, you're trying to figure out the timing, right? Like, I want to start as soon as I can with making splits or making some queens, or I want to get a head start on my package. I want to get a package of bees as soon as I can, so maybe to pollinate my early apple trees or something. And so you try to get these packages in March in parts of the US, like the northern states, and then it turns out to be like it has been recently. I mean, yesterday, man, I woke up to like 15 degrees Fahrenheit with a strong wind chill factor and snow on the ground. Previously, a couple of weeks before, you guys saw me, it's warm, short sleeves, I'm feeding bees, and I'm sitting there going, maybe I'll make a split. But I didn't because I knew that it could turn cold again. How do you unravel all this? It may be quite simple. Now, to untangle this knot, you know, you have to study where each piece goes, and you have to kind of pull that piece out, or you could just pull it like this. I'm not a magician, but I wanted to show you guys that even though we feel like at times beekeeping is just a tangled mess of information, it's not all that hard to figure out. So here's the best way to describe timing of these early season splits and packages. It's like tightening a piano string. You tighten it until it breaks, and then you back off a little bit. Now, that's how most of us feel about timing the early spring season. But what I want to talk to first is for you guys that are starting out with a brand new package, it may be in a wooden cage or maybe in a plastic cage. And let's say, uh-oh, you've got a new package, but then you realize you want to install it, but you hit a cold snap, and now you're afraid to put these bees in a new hive out in the yard when it's going to get really cold tonight below freezing. Is that a concern? Yes, it is. Now, let me explain why that's a concern. If you're putting a new package in a brand new hive, that hive has no drawn out comb, right? And bees utilize the drawn out comb to kind of push their bodies into the cells, and it transfers heat to the next section over. If there's nothing there, then the plastic's it appears to be kind of cold, or the foundation is just a sheet. The bees don't have hardly any resources other than what you're feeding them. They don't have any stored, if they're a brand new package, no stored honey, no stored pollen, nothing in there. So you're dumping 10,000 bees out of this box who were down in a southern or western state, very warm, working flowers, and you're taking them now into your cold climate, dumping them into a cold hive and forcing them to sit there. And if it's in Illinois right now, there's still nothing in bloom. There's no dandelions. We had some trees, but then the bees can't fly out there now. So the bees are just depending on what you're going to feed them in a very cold box. What are some things that you can do? Now, depending on how long your bees have been in a package, one of the things you can do is hold them in the package a day or two until it gets a little bit warmer outside. Now, that's hard to call. You want to install a package as soon as you can. I really believe that. Because usually by the time most people get packages, they have been packaged up for a good number of days. How many? It's hard to say, but it could be as many as 5 or 6, especially if they were shipped to you. And so bees are going to start dying. They're not really dying because they don't like living in here. Many of them are dying just from old age. But nonetheless, they will start to die and land on the bottom. You'll see a bigger accumulation of dead bees on the bottom of your package the longer you wait. So the sooner that you can get them installed, the better it is. However, if you're going to take a bunch of bees and install them on a cold night out in a cold box in a cold yard in the wind, it may be better to hold them another day or two, especially if you see the temperatures are going to increase drastically higher over the next few days. So if you're going to hold them in this package, what I recommend you doing is actually spraying them with 1-to-1 sugar water Try not to spray the queen cage. Locate which side of the package it's hanging on. But you want to spray the outside fencing or screen of a package with 1-to-1 sugar water a couple of times a day, maybe even 3 times a day. Not heavily, just 2 or 3 sprays on each side a few times a day. That gives the bees something to eat. You may not have a lot of candy left in the jar that's in this top hole. Hard to tell. Sometimes they can eat it all. I've even seen some people have the entire container of sugar, if it's liquid, to leak out during transportation because it gets jostled around like that, and it causes the vacuum to kind of break more often, and it causes more of it to leak out. Especially, that's the case especially if the holes are drilled too big in the canisters. Now we particularly use a more solid candy in our packages, so we don't have to worry about it leaking out. But you want to make sure the bees have food. So just in case they've been in here a long time, you can spray some sugar water on the outside of your package 2 or 3 times a day, and you can hold them a day or 2 until temperatures get better for when you can install them out in the yard. Now, what if you get your package and you want to install them, you need to, and the weather's nice and warm, but it's raining terribly hard? What you should do then? Well, you can look at the radar, wait until the rain kind of blows through. But if it's not going to stop raining, and you want to go ahead and get them installed, one of the things I often do, I'll take a bottom board, put it on a deep with a top cover, frames, and I will install a package under some sort of a roof. I'll move my little hive into a trailer, an enclosed trailer, or under a roof somewhere or a porch. I'll install my bees there. Maybe I'll block the entrance off to keep them from flying much. And when it's raining, they're not going to fly much. And I'll only go ahead and install them with a feeder on top, and then I'll carry it, not that heavy, I'll carry it into the position in the wet, rainy bee yard. So I've installed them, I've gotten them out of the package. Now they're able to move around a little bit, access the food that I know is there for them on top in a rainy weather. So think about that. If you have to install in the rain and you don't want to stand out there and get your bees all wet, move under some kind of a canopy or set up a temporary canopy where you can go ahead and install them in their final location. Another big question though, not only about packages, it's about splits. So what if you make a split? When can you make a split? I wish I had the magic answer for when's the best time to make a split. Again, it's like the piano string. What I recommend is wait until you know your bees are going to swarm in your location, and then make your splits a week in advance. Now, all of that is hard to tell. If you're a brand new beekeeper, you may not really understand what that means. And you can look at your hive and you can kind of see drones or maybe some starts of some queen cells or something. And you might start wondering, should I go ahead and split now? Hard to tell. But in most cases, I'm going to tell you, when you make a split, if you're not real experienced in it, here's what can happen. You can split your hive correctly the way that maybe you saw somebody do it on YouTube or how I explained it. But what may happen is you may actually split the hive. Let me give an example. Let's say you do a walk-away split with this hive. And let's say you walk away. I don't have extra equipment here, but you get the idea. I'll walk away with bees here. There's eggs in here. I put them on a bottom board. I put a top cover on here. And now I have 2 hives. One of the things that can happen is these bees that are foraging know where home is over here. And what they'll do is when you make your split, your walkaway split, they'll fly out and they'll go right back home, leaving a lot of bees here unprotected or not having a lot of warm bodies in there because a lot of them went back over here. And so this split can actually die out from being too cold, especially in the early spring when there might be a cold snap or something like that. So there's a little bit of a dangerous scenario in trying to make a split like this. What you're doing, you're separating a nice, large, warm colony. You're making it into 2 smaller colonies. That seems like it would work unless one of the colonies, the one you split, flies back over here. That makes this one even smaller, harder to keep warm, and they'll finally perish, and the brood in there will die from chilled brood. So this is when you want to implement techniques. If you have to make a split in the spring and it's still a little chilly outside, use the Damari method. I'll leave a link in the description below. And right up here, you can see me. You can click on this and watch this after this video. But you can watch me explain the Damari method, where you keep the hive together through the use of a queen excluder. So you have the heat, but you can also prevent swarming. Another way that I'm going to be sharing in a next couple of videos is the snail grove board. Now you can make a snail grove board split or keep it together, but in this way you can use your snail grove board to actually have two queens in one box, or one queen. But anyway, you can cause all the nurse bees to be away from their queen, and all the older bees to be around their queen. Now that prevents the swarm, because in order for a colony to swarm, the queen has to have a lot of young nurse bees around her, a lot of young bees that are in the wax making age of 12 to 17 days old. So if you separate those bees from the queen, they're not going to swarm, because they don't have a lot of young bees that can really get the swarm going once they land. These techniques are really simple to understand. They're a little bit confusing at first, but I'm hoping that my Damari method was simple, and I'm hoping when I explain the snail grove board to you that you'll understand that in an upcoming video, maybe tomorrow or the next day. So be watching my future videos. So that's one of the ways in the early spring, if they're dead set on swarming and you're worried about them, they're too big, then you can use Damari or snail grove or a double screen board to make that split and hold the hive together. A question that many of you are asking me about packages is, you're wondering how soon you should start treating your new bees from a package for mites. That's a very good question. Most of us feel that most producers give us packages that are very low on mites. Most package bee providers have a good way of keeping their mite levels down, or they wouldn't have enough bees to be selling you some of them. And so we're hopeful that that is true, that they have already treated for mites before they even package them up, maybe just a month or less before they package the bees. They've been treated for mites, so mite levels are really low. Here's the other thing to consider. Mites reproduce under the capped cells. And so there's going to be a time period when you install your new package of about 21 or more days, a few days longer, until the queen gets out of the cage and starts laying, right? 21 days for a worker to emerge. So we've got 3 weeks before we have any kind of increase in our mite population. So when you get your package, the mite population is pretty much going to be the same for the next 3 weeks until they start having more brood emerge. And that might be where some of the mites that were in the package might have jumped in on the bees and gone through reproduction, and there'll be more mites. Once your bees start emerging, more mites will start emerging. And so what you're going to be doing is you're going to be attempting to kill mites that are in your package as soon as you get it. Is that a good thing to do? Well, you know, my position is that we should always test, treat, and test. And I don't recommend that you test a new package for mites, and here's why. If you test a new package, you're drawing out 300 bees out of 10,000 bees. You know what percent that is? That means that you'll be killing 3%. Had to do the math in my head. You'll be killing 3% of your package on a mite test. Well, couldn't I just go ahead and treat them and not worry about it and so forth? You could. And I'm not saying that's not a bad idea. They're broodless. You could use something like OA, and hopefully that might help. But here's the thing that worries me. I worry about a new package absconding. And I worry about the queen being in the cage, getting too much of something, fumes or something where she's at. She can't really move around much. So it's a little bit of danger in a package absconding. So they're getting familiar with a brand new colony, brand new frames, and then you douse them with some sort of a treatment in their first few days there. It increases their chance, in my mind, that they may all leave. Absconding is different than swarming. Absconding means the queen and everybody, boom, you have an empty hive. Swarming means the hive has gotten really big, or they want to reproduce, and only half of the colony leaves with the old queen while they raise a new one. So a new package can abscond, and quite honestly, It happens a lot. I've heard numbers of about 7% of new packages, once they're installed, they'll abscond because they're a wild animal and they're looking for trees, their natural habitat to go to. And even though you spend a lot of money on the new hive, they're a wild animal. So you always can't keep them contained. So I'm not sure how worth it is to treat your bees as soon as you get them in a new package. It might be wiser to wait until they're established, the queen's laying good, and the hive is getting some good brood built up, and wait until there's a cycle of brood, and then you don't feel as bad taking 300 bees and killing them because they're larger. Now, if you take a large colony of 50,000 and you do a 300 sample, that percentage is 0.6% of 50,000 bees. So you're actually, is that right? Let's see, 300 of 50,000, 0.6%. That's right. I got to double check that. That could be wrong. But I'm almost positive that's right. Alexa, what percent is 300 of 50,000?
300 is 0.6%
Yeah.
of 50,000.
All right. 0.6%. So a little over 0.5%. So if you test a package, as soon as you get it, you're killing 3% of the colony. Whereas if in the summertime when your bees are running full strength and you're doing a mite sample, it's only a little over 0.5% of the total amount of bees in the hive. So you can see why I think we need to wait until the bees get a little more populated. There's a promise of more brood that we can do a better sample. Now, if you're thinking about starting beekeeping in 2023, there's still time. I'm excited for you guys. We still have packages and nucleuses ready if you're wanting to start. And many beekeepers around the US are still able to help you get started. I've got a video with 1.5 million views on how to get started in beekeeping, and I'll see you over there.